Your excuses are not protecting you, they are silently destroying your future. Every time you say, I don't have time, I'm not ready, it's not the right moment, you're not telling the truth. You're choosing comfort over growth. You're choosing what's easy over what's meaningful. And the price you pay for that choice is your potential. Life doesn't reward intention, it rewards action. And excuses are the chains that keep you exactly where you are. Let me be clear, excuses feel safe, but safety is the enemy of progress. They give you temporary relief from responsibility while robbing you of long-term fulfillment. You weren't born to survive, you were born to create, lead, and expand. Yet every excuse you repeat conditions your brain to expect less from yourself. Over time, those excuses become beliefs, and those beliefs become your identity. That's how people wake up years later wondering where their dreams went. You don't lack time, you don't lack resources, you don't lack talent. What you lack is a non-negotiable standard for your life. Successful people don't have fewer problems, they have stronger reasons. When your why becomes more powerful than your fear, excuses disappear. Pain becomes fuel, resistance becomes training, and obstacles become stepping stones instead of stopping points. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Your life is a direct reflection of the excuses you tolerate. If you tolerate laziness, you get mediocrity. If you tolerate fear, you get stagnation. But the moment you raise your standards, the moment you decide that excuses are no longer acceptable, everything changes. Decisions shape destiny. One decision made with total commitment can rewrite the trajectory of your entire life. Stop waiting to feel confident. Confidence is built through action, not before it. Stop waiting for motivation. Motivation follows movement. The strongest force in the human psyche is momentum, and excuses kill momentum faster than failure ever could. Failure teaches, excuses weaken. One makes you stronger, the other keeps you small. You must learn to replace excuses with better questions. Instead of, why can't I, ask, how will I? Instead of, what if I fail? Ask, what if I succeed? The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself daily. Change the questions and you change the direction of your focus. Change your focus and you change your life. Understand this, nobody is coming to save you. And that's not bad news, that's empowering. Because it means you are the solution. You don't need permission, you don't need perfect conditions. You need the courage to take the next uncomfortable step. Progress happens outside your comfort zone, and excuses are nothing more than your comfort zone trying to keep control. So decide right now that excuse is no longer live in your mind. Decide that your future matters more than your fear. Decide that discipline is stronger than distraction. When you commit fully, life meets you halfway, energy rises, clarity appears, opportunities align. And the version of you that once hid behind excuses is replaced by a leader who takes ownership of everything. Your destiny is waiting on the other side of the excuse you've been holding on to. Drop it, step forward, and become the person you were always meant to be. Excuses often feel like a soft place to land. They protect you from discomfort, embarrassment, and short-term failure. When you say, I'll start tomorrow, or I'm not ready yet, your mind experiences temporary relief. But that relief is deceptive. It comes at the cost of momentum, and momentum is the lifeblood of growth. Each time you choose an excuse over action, you train yourself to avoid challenge instead of rising to meet it, slowly weakening your belief in your own ability to handle life. Over time, excuses begin to chip away at confidence in subtle ways. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's built through keeping promises to yourself. Every broken promise, every time you talk yourself out of action, sends a message to your subconscious that your words don't matter. Eventually, you stop trusting yourself. You hesitate more, doubt your instincts, and second-guess decisions that once felt clear, all because excuses quietly stole your self-belief. Ambition also fades under the weight of excuses. At first, your dreams are vivid and alive, pulling you forward with excitement. But when excuses become your default response, those dreams start to feel unrealistic, even childish. You lower your expectations not because you lack ability, but because it feels safer to want less than to risk failure. Ambition doesn't disappear overnight. It slowly suffocates under the constant pressure of rationalization. Excuses also distort how you see the future. Instead of viewing challenges as opportunities to grow, you begin to see them as threats to avoid. Your future shrinks to match your comfort zone. Possibilities that once felt achievable now seem distant or reserved for other people. Without realizing it, you trade a future full of potential for one that feels predictable, controlled, and painfully limited. What makes excuses especially dangerous is how reasonable they sound. They often come wrapped in logic, responsibility, or even self-care. You convince yourself you're being realistic when in truth you're settling. The mind is incredibly skilled at justifying an action, and the more you listen to those justifications, the easier it becomes to accept less than you are capable of achieving. Eventually, excuses don't just affect what you do, they shape who you believe you are. You start identifying as someone who almost tries, someone who has bad timing, or someone who is waiting for the right moment. That identity becomes a ceiling on your life. And without realizing it, you allow excuses to define your limits, quietly stealing the extraordinary future that was always within your reach. Comfort feels good because it asks nothing from you. It allows your days to blend together without resistance, challenge, or risk. When life feels predictable, the mind relaxes and convinces you that staying where you are is good enough. But comfort has a hidden cost. The moment you stop stretching yourself, you stop growing. What feels like peace is often just stagnation wearing a friendly mask, slowly locking you into the same habits, the same thoughts, and the same results. Growth, by its nature, demands discomfort. Every meaningful upgrade in life, stronger confidence, greater skill, deeper self-belief, comes from doing what once felt uncomfortable. Muscles grow by tearing and rebuilding. Character grows the same way. When you avoid discomfort, you deny yourself the experiences that force adaptation. You remain mentally and emotionally untrained for bigger challenges, even though you are capable of far more than your comfort zone allows. Comfort also feeds fear in subtle ways. The longer you stay comfortable, the more intimidating change becomes. Small risks start to feel massive, and unfamiliar situations feel threatening rather than exciting. You begin protecting your comfort instead of pursuing your potential. Over time, fear doesn't just stop you from moving forward, it convinces you that moving forward isn't necessary at all. Discomfort, on the other hand, sharpens you. It wakes you up. When you step into uncertainty, your focus increases and your senses come alive. You learn faster, think clearer, and discover strengths you didn't know existed. Discomfort forces you to engage fully with life instead of passively drifting through it. It transforms pressure into power and resistance into resilience. Many people mistake comfort for happiness, but they are not the same. Comfort is temporary relief. Happiness comes from progress and purpose. The deepest fulfillment doesn't come from ease. It comes from knowing you are becoming more than you were yesterday. When you push through discomfort, you earn a level of pride and self-respect that comfort can never provide. The truth is, your comfort zone is not a safe place, it's a small place. It keeps your world limited to what you already know and what you already have. The life you want exists just beyond that boundary, waiting for you to step forward. Every moment of discomfort is an invitation to grow, to expand, and to become the stronger version of yourself that comfort will never allow you to meet. Most people live with good intentions. They intend to change, intend to improve, intend to start soon. In their minds, these intentions feel meaningful, almost productive. But intention alone has no weight in the real world. Life doesn't respond to what you plan, hope, or promise yourself. It responds to what you actually do. Without action, even the best intentions remain invisible, producing no impact and no results. Intentions can even become a trap. They give the illusion of progress without demanding effort. You feel responsible because you care, yet nothing changes because you haven't moved. Over time, this gap between intention and action creates frustration and guilt. You know what you should be doing, but knowing without doing slowly drains your energy and confidence, leaving you stuck in a cycle of wanting more but experiencing less. Action is the language life understands. Every opportunity, breakthrough, and transformation comes from movement. When you take action, especially when it's uncomfortable, you send a powerful signal to yourself that you are serious. That signal builds self-trust. Each small action reinforces belief, strengthens discipline, and creates momentum that intentions alone could never generate. Consistency is what turns action into results. One burst of effort feels exciting, but repeated action is what reshapes your identity. Showing up daily, even when motivation is low, compounds over time. Progress becomes inevitable because habits replace hesitation. Life begins to reward you not because you hope for change, but because you proved you were willing to work for it. Action also brings clarity. While intentions live in the mind, action exposes reality. When you move, you discover what works and what doesn't. You learn faster, adapt quicker, and refine your direction. Action turns uncertainty into feedback and confusion into experience, giving you information that thinking alone could never provide. The people who create extraordinary lives are not those with the best ideas, but those who act despite fear, doubt, and imperfection. They understand that movement creates confidence, and confidence fuels more movement. The moment you shift from intending to acting, life responds, doors open, paths appear, and results follow those who are bold enough to take the first step. At first, an excuse feels harmless. It sounds logical, even responsible. You tell yourself you're waiting for better timing, more clarity, or the right circumstances. But the mind is always listening. Every excuse you repeat is not just a thought, it's a message being delivered to your subconscious. Over time, that message settles in, shaping how you see yourself and what you believe you're capable of handling. The brain learns through repetition. When excuses become your go-to response, your mind begins to accept them as truth. I'm too busy turns into I'm always overwhelmed. I'm not ready slowly becomes I'm not capable. What once felt temporary becomes permanent in your thinking. Without realizing it, you start building an internal story that explains why growth, success, or change isn't for you. As these excuses harden into beliefs, they begin to define your identity. You don't just make excuses, You become someone who avoids risk, someone who plays small, someone who settles. Identity is powerful because it controls behavior automatically. Once you see yourself a certain way, your actions work to stay consistent with that image even if it keeps you stuck. Beliefs also act as filters for reality. When you believe you're limited, you stop noticing opportunities. You overlook possibilities, ignore solutions, and downplay your strengths. Even when chances appear, your belief system quietly talks you out of them. You don't reject opportunity consciously. You simply don't see it as meant for you. What makes this cycle dangerous is how normal it feels. You don't wake up one day and decide to limit your life. It happens gradually through small excuses repeated daily. Each one lowers your expectations just a little more until the life you're living looks nothing like the one you once imagined. Comfort replaces curiosity, and certainty replaces courage. Yet the same mechanism that turns excuses into limiting beliefs can work in your favor. The mind doesn't care whether the message is empowering or destructive. It only responds to repetition. Change the story you tell yourself, and you change the person you become. New actions create new evidence, and new evidence reshapes belief, opening doors you once believed were closed forever. Most people believe they are stuck because they lack something: time, money, talent, connections, or luck. This belief feels comforting because it shifts responsibility away from choice. But when you look closely at successful individuals, you realize they started with no more resources than anyone else. What separated them was not what they had, but what they refused to tolerate. Their standards for effort, discipline, and growth were simply higher. Your standards shape your behavior every single day. They determine what you accept, what you avoid, and what you walk away from. If your standard allows procrastination, excuses, or inconsistency, then those behaviors become normal. Not because you want them, but because you've unconsciously approved them. The moment you raise your standards, your behavior is forced to rise to meet them. Time is not the problem people claim it to be. Everyone gets the same 24 hours. The difference is how those hours are protected and prioritized. High standards mean certain actions become non-negotiable, regardless of mood or circumstances. When something is a must, you find a way. When it's optional, you find an excuse. Standards turn intentions into commitments. Talent is often overrated and discipline underestimated. Many people with incredible ability never fulfill their potential because their standards for practice, consistency, and resilience are low. Meanwhile, others with average talent outperform them by showing up daily and refusing to quit. Standards dictate how hard you push when motivation fades and how you respond when results are slow. Raising your standards can feel uncomfortable because it demands honesty. It forces you to confront where you've been settling and where you've been making excuses. But this discomfort is productive. It's the kind that builds self-respect. When you live by higher standards, you begin to trust yourself again. Your confidence grows not from external validation, but from knowing you do what you say you will do. The most powerful change you can make is deciding what is no longer acceptable in your life. When you draw that line with clarity and commitment, everything shifts. Your habits change, your focus sharpens, and your results follow. Success doesn't arrive when you gain more resources. It arrives when you demand more from yourself. Fear is a natural part of growth, but it becomes paralyzing when it stands alone without purpose. When you don't have a clear reason for pushing forward, fear fills the gap. It whispers doubts, magnifies risks, and convinces you to stay where it feels familiar. Fear thrives in the absence of meaning. Without a strong why, every challenge feels heavier and every step forward feels optional. Your why is the emotional engine behind your actions. It's not just a goal or a desire, it's the deep reason that makes discomfort worth it. When your reasons are weak, excuses feel logical. When your reasons are strong, excuses sound ridiculous. A powerful why transforms effort from a burden into a mission, giving you the strength to move even when confidence is missing. Fear loses power when purpose takes the lead. You may still feel afraid, but fear no longer gets to decide your behavior. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" you begin asking, "What will it cost me if I don't try?" That shift changes everything. Fear shrinks when compared to the pain of regret and the vision of a better future. A strong why also fuels persistence. Motivation comes and goes, but purpose anchors you when enthusiasm fades. When your reason is deeply personal, your family, your freedom, your legacy, you find energy in moments where you once quit. You stop negotiating with yourself because quitting would mean betraying something that truly matters to you. Many people wait for fear to disappear before taking action, not realizing fear is a sign they're moving towards something meaningful. Your why doesn't remove fear. It gives you the courage to walk through it. When you're connected to a reason bigger than comfort, fear becomes background noise instead of a command. When your reasons are powerful enough, your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to succeed and start seeing yourself as someone who must. That shift rewires your decisions, your habits, and your resilience. Fear and excuses lose control not because they vanish, but because they are no longer the strongest voices in your mind. Most people believe confidence is something you must feel before you act. They wait for certainty, motivation, or self-belief to magically appear. But confidence doesn't work that way. If confidence came first, no one would ever struggle. Confidence is not the starting point. It is the reward for movement. It is built after you step forward, not before. Every time you take action despite discomfort, your brain records evidence that you are capable. That evidence is powerful. One uncomfortable conversation, one brave decision, one imperfect attempt creates proof that fear doesn't control you. Confidence grows from these moments of courage, not from positive thinking or waiting for the right feeling. Avoiding action actually weakens confidence. When you hesitate, overthink, or delay, you reinforce doubt. Your mind learns that fear wins and self-trust erodes. Over time, inaction becomes a habit, and the belief that you can't becomes stronger, not because it's true, but because you never gave yourself proof otherwise. Bold action breaks this cycle. When you act while uncertain, you teach yourself resilience. You learn that discomfort is survivable and failure is not fatal. Each step forward expands your comfort zone, making what once felt impossible feel manageable. Confidence doesn't arrive in a single moment. It compounds with each brave choice you make. Confidence is also built through repetition. One action is powerful, but consistent action reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hesitates and start seeing yourself as someone who shows up. That identity shift is what creates lasting confidence, the kind that doesn't disappear when circumstances change. The most confident people aren't fearless, they're experienced. They've acted through fear so many times that fear no longer defines them. Confidence is simply the memory of challenges you faced and survived. When you take bold, uncomfortable steps, you don't just move forward, you build the belief that you can handle whatever comes next. Failure has a way of revealing truth. It strips away illusions and forces you to see where you need to grow. When you fail, you gain information about your skills, your strategy, and your resilience. That information is priceless. It sharpens your awareness and prepares you to approach the next attempt with greater wisdom and strength. Failure doesn't define you, it trains you. Excuses, on the other hand, protect the ego while damaging the future. They allow you to avoid responsibility and discomfort, but they also block learning. When you blame circumstances, timing, or others, you miss the lesson hidden in the experience. Nothing changes because nothing is examined. Growth requires reflection, and excuses shut that door completely. Failure creates momentum because it keeps you engaged in the process. Each attempt builds experience, even when the outcome isn't what you hoped for. With every failure, you gain clarity about what works and what doesn't. You stay in motion, and motion is what leads to breakthroughs. Excuses stop motion entirely, leaving potential unused and progress frozen. Emotionally, failure builds resilience. When you face disappointment and keep going, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your setbacks. That proof becomes confidence. You learn to trust your ability to recover, adapt, and continue. Excuses steal that opportunity, keeping you fragile and overly dependent on perfect conditions. Excuses also shape your self-image in destructive ways. When you rely on them, you begin to see yourself as someone who avoids challenge. That identity limits your choices before you even try. Failure, by contrast, reshapes identity in a positive direction. It turns you into someone who attempts, learns, and improves, someone who grows through effort. The people who succeed most are not those who fail the least, but those who learn the fastest. They understand that failure is part of the process, not a signal to stop. Excuses promise comfort but deliver stagnation. Failure may hurt, but it strengthens your character, sharpens your skills, and keeps you moving toward the life you're capable of creating. Every moment of your life is shaped by the questions you ask yourself. When something goes wrong, your mind immediately searches for meaning. If your questions are disempowering, your focus narrows and your energy drops. Questions like, why does this always happen to me? Or, what's wrong with me? Lock you into frustration and helplessness. They don't seek solutions. They reinforce limitations. The brain is a problem-solving machine, but it can only work with the instructions it's given. When you ask limiting questions, your mind delivers limiting answers. It scans your past for evidence of failure and feeds you reasons to stay stuck. Without realizing it, you train your brain to focus on obstacles rather than options, making challenges feel heavier than they actually are. Empowering questions change everything because they redirect your focus. When you ask, what can I learn from this? Or how can I use this to grow? Your brain searches for answers that strengthen you. Suddenly, the same situation that once felt overwhelming becomes a training ground. You shift from feeling powerless to feeling engaged and curious. The questions you ask also influence your emotional state. Disempowering questions create stress, anxiety, and self-doubt. Empowering questions generate clarity, confidence, and motivation. When your emotional state improves, your decisions improve. Better decisions lead to better actions, and better actions create better results. High performers are not free from problems, they simply ask better questions. Instead of asking why something is hard, they ask how it can be done. Instead of asking if they're capable, they ask what skills they need to develop. These questions keep them moving forward even in uncertainty because they focus on progress rather than perfection. Over time, your habitual questions become your mindset. They determine what you notice, what you believe, and what you attempt. Change the questions you consistently ask, and you change the direction of your life. Possibility expands, solutions appear, and challenges become opportunities waiting to be used. Every moment of your life is shaped by the questions you ask yourself. When something goes wrong, your mind immediately searches for meaning. If your questions are disempowering, your focus narrows and your energy drops. Questions like, why does this always happen to me? Or, what's wrong with me? Lock you into frustration and helplessness. They don't seek solutions, they reinforce limitations. The brain is a problem-solving machine, but it can only work with the instructions it's given. When you ask limiting questions, your mind delivers limiting answers. It scans your past for evidence of failure and feeds you reasons to stay stuck. Without realizing it, you train your brain to focus on obstacles rather than options, making challenges feel heavier than they actually are. Empowering questions change everything because they redirect your focus. When you ask, what can I learn from this? Or how can I use this to grow? Your brain searches for answers that strengthen you. Suddenly, the same situation that once felt overwhelming becomes a training ground. You shift from feeling powerless to feeling engaged and curious. The questions you ask also influence your emotional state. Disempowering questions create stress, anxiety, and self-doubt. Empowering questions generate clarity, confidence, and motivation. When your emotional state improves, your decisions improve. Better decisions lead to better actions, and better actions create better results. High performers are not free from problems. They simply ask better questions. Instead of asking why something is hard, they ask how it can be done. Instead of asking if they're capable, they ask what skills they need to develop. These questions keep them moving forward, even in uncertainty, because they focus on progress rather than perfection. Over time, your habitual questions become your mindset. They determine what you notice, what you believe, and what you attempt. Change the questions you consistently ask, and you change the direction of your life. Possibility expands, solutions appear, and challenges become opportunities waiting to be used. Taking personal responsibility is one of the most empowering decisions a person can make. At first, it can feel heavy because it means you can no longer blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck. But within that weight lies freedom. The moment you accept that your life is shaped by your choices, you regain control. You stop waiting for permission or rescue and start acting as the creator of your own path. Many people live in quiet frustration because they are waiting for motivation, support, approval, or the perfect opportunity. This waiting keeps them stuck in a passive role, hoping something outside themselves will change. When you realize no one is coming to save you, the waiting ends. That realization shifts you from helplessness to ownership, and ownership is where real power lies. Personal responsibility forces clarity. Instead of asking who's at fault, you ask what can be done. This shift immediately opens doors. You stop wasting energy on resentment or excuses and redirect it towards solutions. Problems become manageable because you see yourself as capable of responding, adapting, and improving rather than as a victim of circumstances. Responsibility also builds self-respect. Each time you take ownership of your actions, your discipline, and your results, you strengthen trust in yourself. You begin to see that you can rely on your own decisions and effort. This trust becomes confidence, not the loud kind, but the steady kind that allows you to move forward even when things are uncertain. Freedom doesn't come from having no obligations. It comes from choosing your obligations consciously. When you take responsibility, you decide what matters and what doesn't. You stop being controlled by reactions and start living intentionally. Life becomes less about surviving what happens to you and more about shaping what happens next. The most powerful people are not those with the least problems, but those who refuse to give their power away. By accepting full responsibility for your life, you stop living at the mercy of circumstances. You reclaim your ability to choose, to grow, and to direct your future with purpose and strength. In the end, everything comes down to ownership. The moment you stop making excuses, stop waiting for comfort, and stop hoping for rescue, your life begins to change. Action replaces intention, purpose overpowers fear, and responsibility transforms into freedom. Confidence is built through movement, failure becomes a teacher, and empowering questions open doors you once believed were closed. When you raise your standards and take full control of your choices, you reclaim your power. Your future is not decided by circumstances, it is shaped by the decisions you make and the actions you take starting now.